Have you ever wondered what happens in the quiet moments when a narcissist is left alone, away from the spotlight without an audience to impress? It's in that silence that something peculiar unfolds. Instead of resting or reflecting like most people, the narcissist begins to perform, not for others but for themselves. These are not casual daydreams. They're elaborate mental productions where they star as the undefeated hero, the misunderstood genius, or the dazzling figure the world has yet to fully appreciate. They replay moments of past admiration like sacred rituals, exaggerating compliments, rewriting conversations, imagining applause louder than it ever was. And when those memories run dry, they fast forward into future fantasies. Interviews they haven't given yet, awards they haven't received, lovers they haven't seduced. But in their mind, it's already real. This isn't just vanity. It's maintenance. It's how their identity stays intact when no one is around to mirror it back. If you've ever been close to a narcissist, you might now realize even their solitude is curated. It's a private echo chamber designed to reinforce one idea: I am exceptional, and the world must never forget it. And what comes next is even more revealing. Of course, feeding this illusion isn't limited to their imagination. Narcissists have a modern ally, one that never sleeps, never questions, and is always watching: social media. If solitude is the rehearsal, platforms like Instagram or Facebook become their stage. But make no mistake, it's not about sharing life. It's about controlling perception. Every photo, every caption, every spontaneous story is carefully designed to say one thing: I am winning. They craft versions of themselves that barely resemble reality, polished, admired, envied. And with each like, each comment, their internal engine gets fueled. It's like injecting tiny doses of validation to keep the ego alive and glowing. But what happens behind the scenes is even more telling. They don't just post, they observe. They scroll through profiles of ex-partners, friends, even rivals. They compare, compete, calculate. Who's getting more attention? Who seems happier? Who needs to be put in their place soon? What? Looks like passive browsing is actually strategic monitoring. And if they feel someone else is shining too brightly, they won't rest. Expect a subtle jab disguised as a humble brag, or a carefully timed post to reclaim the spotlight. It's not attention they seek. It's dominance through admiration. And that hunger leads to something even more unsettling. When admiration isn't flowing fast enough, narcissists don't just sit and wait. They prepare. And that preparation doesn't look like healing or introspection. It looks like a chessboard. In the quiet hours, many narcissists meticulously review past interactions like a general studying battlefield footage. They dissect words, facial expressions, pauses in conversations, anything that might expose a weakness to be exploited later. They ask themselves, where did I lose control? What buttons worked last time? How can I twist this next time to get what I want without ever being blamed? Sometimes they rehearse entire dialogues, predicting your reactions, rewriting your replies, reshaping reality until it suits their agenda. Other times they draft messages they won't send right away, emotional grenades perfectly timed for future detonation. And if they've lost access to someone's attention, they don't give up. They devise re-entry tactics, feigned vulnerability, sudden apologies, or even using a mutual friend as a pawn. It's not just manipulation, it's calculated influence, a silent game that starts long before the next interaction. If you've ever felt blindsided by a narcissist's words, like they knew exactly how to pull you back in, chances are the script was written during these moments of solitude. But it doesn't stop with the future. They also tamper with the past. What if I told you that for a narcissist, the past isn't a memory? It's a manuscript, and they're the sole editor. After all the planning and prediction, many narcissists turn inward to restructure the story of what already happened. But not to heal. The goal isn't closure, it's control. They revise memories to fit whatever version of themselves they want to reinforce. Were they cruel? Now they were just misunderstood. Did they betray someone's trust? Suddenly, they were the real victim all along. These rewrites are subtle, but relentless. And once the revision is complete, the new version becomes truth, at least in their mind. This distorted reality gives them the emotional permission they need to justify future actions. After all, if they were wronged, then what comes next is simply justice, not manipulation. You might even hear them tell the same story again and again, but each time with a slightly different tone, a new twist, a missing detail. It's not forgetfulness, it's editing. For those close to them, it can feel dizzying. You start questioning your own memory. Maybe I misunderstood? Maybe it really happened that way? But deep down, you know it didn't. And once their rewritten past feels secure, they move to stir up the present. Once the past has been rewritten, narcissists often turn their gaze towards something more immediate, the emotional temperature of their relationships. And if things feel too calm, too neutral, that's a problem. For most people, peace is a sign of health. But for a narcissist, silence feels like irrelevance. So they spark tension, not always with explosive fights, but with subtle provocations. A passive-aggressive comment, a delayed reply, a sudden withdrawal of affection. These are not random. They're tests they want to see. Will you chase them? Will you explain yourself? Will you work harder to please them, just to restore harmony? Conflict becomes a tool, a way to stay at the center of your emotional life, even if it means keeping you in a state of confusion or guilt. And here's the cruel irony. They often blame you for the very chaos they've engineered. You're too sensitive. You're always starting drama. Sound familiar? It's a dizzying cycle. Provoke, deny, blame, repeat. And while you're caught in emotional quicksand, they're collecting proof that they're the one being mistreated. But it's not about truth. It's about maintaining control, and when that tactic no longer gives them the rush they crave, impulsivity takes the wheel. After all the drama, the mind games, and the silent manipulations, there are moments when none of it feels like enough. The attention fades, the drama quiets, and in that stillness, something dangerous begins to rise. Emptiness. Narcissists aren't wired to sit with that void, so they act, suddenly, recklessly, and without warning. One moment they're composed, the next they've booked an unnecessary trip, maxed out a credit card, or reached out to someone they once claimed to hate. These impulsive behaviors aren't accidents. They're emotional quick fixes, desperate. Attempts to feel alive, admired, or at the very least, distracted. They might post something bold or cryptic online, hoping someone bites, or make a risky move in a relationship just to provoke a strong emotional reaction, even if it's anger. Because to them, even negative attention is better than none. And if you confront them about it, they'll either glamorize their spontaneity, "I'm just passionate," or flip the blame, "You pushed me to this." But underneath it all is one truth: they're chasing a spark to light up the emptiness inside. And when even impulsivity fails to fill that void, they return to something familiar, something that once fed their ego with little effort. When new sources of admiration dry up, and impulsive thrills no longer do the trick, the narcissist often circles back to you or someone like you, someone they once discarded, but never truly let go. They reopen closed doors, often with a message that seems random. "Hey, I was just thinking about you. Remember that time we—" It may sound innocent, even sweet, but don't be fooled. This isn't nostalgia, it's strategy. They return not because they've changed, but because they remember how easily your presence once fed their sense of importance. And they hope the emotional thread still pulls at your heart. They might apologize, or suddenly praise you, or pretend they missed the connection. But the real question is, why now? It's because something in their present life isn't working. The spotlight dimmed, the ego cracked. So they go digging through emotional archives looking for the last place they felt powerful. And if you respond, the cycle begins again. But this time you might notice the pattern, and that's where the power shifts. Because the moment you stop being a source of validation is the moment they realize they've lost control. And that brings us to the truth they never want you to see. what all this behavior is really hiding underneath. Beneath the confidence, the charisma, and the calculated charm lies something few expect: fragility. All the manipulation, the obsession with image, the relentless search for admiration, it's not rooted in strength, but in fear. Fear of being invisible, of not mattering, of looking inward and not liking what they find. When a narcissist is alone, they're not resting in peace. They're working tirelessly to keep their ego from collapsing. But now that you've seen these patterns, you're no longer in the dark. You can stop mistaking manipulation for affection or drama for depth. You can recognize when someone is using attention as oxygen and realize that has nothing to do with your worth. So here's your quiet invitation. Take a step back, protect your peace, guard your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You are not a mirror for someone else's reflection. You are your own source of light, and when you stop playing the role they cast you in, you begin writing your own story.